Well, the engineering area is a little jammed up right now, folks, so let's pick things up over here at the showcase slash work table. Welcome, viewers, to one of the most exciting things in my career thus far. I have never had blueprints or a complete set of construction drawings for an existing residence that I'm going to proceed and renovate. All the renovation work that I've ever done has been on homes and structures that are easily 50 years old, if not closer to 100, 150. And most stuff built in the middle of the 20th century. The town building department doesn't have the blueprints. And you'll notice here, this is for Mr. and Mrs. whomever. The blueprints, first and foremost, are for the person who commissions the construction, and of course for the contractor and everybody else, done by the architect. However, a lot of times they came home and they weren't necessarily taken to a building department, and there wasn't necessarily a building department in the town at that time. And therefore, if it doesn't get to the building department before the original people pass away, it's in the file cabinet, best case scenario, or in the stacks of belongings that went on down through the family. Or hidden somewhere, wherever. So at the time that we started to make sure in like the 70s and 80s that the building department in a lot of towns, and then in the 90s, this is dated or no? 2001. And this is still hand drawn. And this is true carbon copy blueprint, which is friggin' awesome. Very cute little federal kind of colonial-esque, despite its age, with attached garage, nip corners on the door, kind of a showy entryway shown in the drawing, which now is a full porch. Yes, I think it is. So, and if we go out to the foundation, this is your front and back elevation on the front page, and your foundation view shows this entryway knee wall. So, yes, I believe now, and we'll see this when we get there. I've been up there a couple times now. There's a full concrete poured porch and the garage. And I want to say there's an overhead door on the side of the garage now. I'm not sure on that. Anyway, let's get into this. Is pretty fundamental stuff, relatively typical rectangle, but we've got this weird little notch. Must have been so important, and that puts us, you can't see it here. This is it here. Just to squeeze this over so that the roof, this might have just went and been far more functional. It just seems to add a lot of complexity to notch that, and it's on the back side, so it's nothing to do. A lot of times you see that and it's like, well, we just wanted a body line off of this gable end of this dormer kind of roof line, so we want this to actually overhang something and to bump that out a foot or something like that, to doll up or otherwise dress up something. On the back, it's very weird to notch the foundation a tiny bit there. Whatever. That's what they did. Pretty typical or fundamental thing here. We've got beams on either side of a switchback, or there's another word for this that it escapes me right now, but the stairs to a landing, up, down, up. And you got a beam on either side of that because that's a pretty good sized hole. And that is a smallish span in here. So we got a reasonable span from the front wall, the shortish span, the span that's a bit of a stretch here for 2x10, and then another relatively short span, because you've got a rectangle, and would you divide it evenly? In a lot of cases, yes, but then you start dealing with other factors here, okay? And where we plan to have our interior walls. So you can see they did all this. You probably start here, and you could take this system and you could slide the pair of beams up and down, depending on what you'd want to do with your layout here. And then this notch takes off and suggests the location of a logical interior wall, because this is vaulted. This here, beyond my hand, has not got a second story. So looking at the first floor, we've got a second story in this area, but not back there. So we move to the next page, and we can see Oh, I'm sorry. This is the basement and foundation plans. So anyway, your stairway system, once again, it pushes this wall location that locates the bath and the laundry room area, and it stretches or, shrinks. And that's another thing. If you're going to move this way, you're going to start going further than a 2x10 joist can do the span across this room as a second floor joist to be walked on. So this area of the house does exist in first floor, as you can see here. It's what do you call that? Eat-in kitchen, or they call it the dining nook here on this kitchen. And then you go to the second floor, and this is just a roof out here with a little additional thing, which we're going to come back and make mention of. It's an insert type cantilevered chimney. Go back to foundation. The foundation comes through here. It says right on there, cantilever. So that's the floor joists for this room that go from the outside wall to this beam here. They're just left long out here, and the rims put on them out there, and you end up with a cantilevered floor footprint that can be framed out. And for whatever reason, it's mostly because an insert to look appropriate and be in the right depth of the wall on the inside to look like a fireplace and a chimney, which normally goes out there, while the insert's deep enough to mean that you're well beyond the outside wall of the house. And so you gotta do something there. The handiest thing to do is give yourself plenty of room for future inserts or any kind of changes that people want to make here someday, and just make a typical rectangle and build it like the rest of the house and go right up and up and up into the roof, and then just side it. So and I'm talking a lot about that because that's going to come into play here. What are their concerns with their first floor? You come in the front door, okay, left, and they like the study, okay, no problems with that. The stairs, we're married to the stairs on the left here, and this bathroom situation and this coat closet and stuff, pretty functional stuff here. This is the main lane of traffic into what we're going to mostly deal with here in the back sort of half of this layout. You can also bear right. Yeah. Interesting. Now, I thought when you bared right that you were still in a hallway that goes, this is hallway for sure, but I thought it was still part of this area and this dining room was within a wall here, but it's not. You actually enter the dining room. The flooring, we'll have to look at this, but I think maybe the flooring of the entryway and in through here is all the same. Maybe that's what it is. On the floor, it's all tile or what have you, or hardwood here. And then behind this body line maybe is, anyway. Regardless, there's another route to this back half of the house. Two routes here. So we've got cats can do a circle, and that type. Kids can run around here. That type of a layout happening. Okay. We've got the laundry room and machines here, and right straight out into the garage, which you drive into up here. Now, the biggest issue they've got this beautiful family room. I mean, it's enormous here. You've got some walk area, you got a big sectional sofa, and the fireplace is there. TV, I think, is to one side or maybe above the fireplace, whatever. It's just a monumentally large family area. And it's just the pair of folks and their twin kids, about 10 years old. But the impetus here was like, we're bigger, getting to be a bigger family, trying to entertain more. And one of the problems that we run into is that the dining room area is sort of family-sized. And entertaining in here comes off the rails. There's no room for more than 5 or 6 people to sit down in here at a table, and you're back and forth to the kitchen area. And the kitchen is a classic entertaining hangout, okay? But it's abysmal. They've got the sink is here, the fridge is there, and your stove is here, so you've got the bit of the triangular workflow that you need, but there's no outside window, certainly not one above the sink, and they did their best with that by pointing you toward all of these other windows when you're at the sink, right? So that's a bit of something, but there's practically no counter. Inside corner counter is really unhandy. There's a small piece of it here, and then a little bit to the right and to the left of the kitchen sink. There's less than a square here. There's about a square 24 inches here. There's a square 24 inches here and a bit longer of an area here, all of which where you're pointed in the corner in the dark when you're doing your kitchen work. My apologies about my gross little inside corner inside the door, but that's essentially what's happening here. It's no fun here. And we got both people that love to cook and to bake. And I mean, she loves to bake like big cakes and stuff, sort of on the side as a side hustle, I think. This here is not a kitchen lover's kitchen, and it's just too bad. Now, the other thing I've said to them is it's so funny when people have a big, beautiful magazine kitchen and they don't cook, But it certainly doesn't hurt the value of the house. It's always fun to hang out with a glass of wine in a big space like that, and when everybody brings food or you have something catered, well, the vibe is right, okay? But in this case, Excuse me, it's the other way around, where they love to cook and bake, and this is essentially what they've got for the kitchen, you know? So, some of the problems here. They've also got to go down the basement to get the pantry, large long-term storage stuff, and back up to the kitchen, and back down to the basement, and back up to the kitchen, because this is the tiny little pantry. I mean, this is the insert for the fireplace, and this is the pantry for scale. There's practically no room here. So, they said we're a bigger family all get-together. We're entertaining more. The kitchen is kind of not working for us. And one of the other issues that we've got is this dining area. It just kind of falls by the wayside. The eat out here, the patio door goes out and down, and they got the in-ground pool here in the backyard, etc. And so they end up in there more as a family, and then in this area, and try to keep it to the warm weather, so they're back here when they're entertaining or have guests. And this here really ends up being like game night, and it's in the front corner quadrant of the house. So Chazzy, what do? You know, what can we do here, Chezzy? These are friends of my wife, and now they're friends of mine. They're our age. The house is relatively new, but old enough to merit this kind of renovation. I think that somebody did their best here to have everything come together, but downplayed this kitchen. For some reason, they had all this outside wall real estate to pick a place for the kitchen sink to look out an outside window, and I really think that unless this person that drew this had brain damage, significant brain damage, that this was intentional. It just wasn't important, the kitchen, and I think that's pretty clear. So what are we going to do about that? I would like to see them move this door from the garage into this wall, into this dining room area, and I probably push it up to the front, because they don't exactly line up here, but we'll go in a bit of a ways and do the same door, transplant it to there, okay? Then we can come in from the garage into what used to be the dining room. And I propose that after the door, we wall it off to the front here. Wall that right along here. We got to play a little jazz here and figure some of this stuff out. But along that wall, I'd like to see a long bench with upper cubbies and lower cubbies, and one of those typical entryway built-ins for the kids and everybody to hang up their jackets, this and that, to come and go, because they do truly use the garage to park the cars in, which is really good to see. And so since we're coming and going from the garage a lot, let's promote having everything that you need, some keys on the wall and all that stuff right here against this new wall. But then around to the right, either on your way into this area or on your way into this area, a galley-style pantry, where we go right down either one side of it and the entire other side of it, and the end are cupboards, floor to ceiling, different things with the details not necessarily important right now. Or if we can get it wide enough, we can go down the center of it and be on both sides with our storage. So we can come right in, take our clothes and keys and stuff off. If this is all tile here, you can have boots and that big, basket weave kind of entryway outdoor carpets that are on there, and go right around inside and put all of the dry goods and long-term storage pantry items and stuff all right in there. And then you could take your fresh produce and your milk and your cheese and all your stuff that's got to go into the kitchen proper and pick one of these lanes. Now, I propose that you're using this lane because I would like to see the kitchen either in this quadrant of this back of the house, okay, or in this quadrant. Because over here we've tried that, no bueno. And over here, we've lost some space, and we've got sliding patio doors, and this is the patio outside, and you exit and enter it there. So we're kind of hung up here on really growing the scope to do anything there. I think our options are to more accurately cut this space in half, because right now it's weighted heavily to the family room side. Kind of be in half more so, and pick either here or here for that kitchen. And the opposite being for the dining room proper. I think that this needs to become the family room area. I think if we were to square this off more over to here, and if you look at this island and imagine more of a sectional couch and an ottoman or a coffee table here, and then he's got himself a built-in right along this interior wall that's not necessary that he built. And that's a cool part of this, is that Tim's going to be working with me on this like Ed was working with me on the other house, except Tim's not going to make me want to cut my own throat and bleed out on the floor. So we're going to maybe sacrifice this wall, but we're not going to sacrifice all this beautiful built-in. Maybe that could live over in this family room area, and for the most part, you can have the television set over in here somewhere, and you have the same feel to an open plan rear end of the house where everybody can see everything, and and now you can add interior walls to break that up if it becomes necessary as we get more firm in our design here, okay? But I think that this is going to be I would like to see this the family room. And now the pros on a kitchen out on this corner here are that you've got it's a corner, frankly. You've got two major walls with lights, with daylight coming in, with windows, okay? Now we got to do something with this chimney, and I think if the family room's coming over here, I think anywhere on this wall here would be where we end up putting that chimney. If we were to relocate, transplant this whole scenario, I think in a lot of ways we could likely keep a lot of the construction here and do a clean and clever literal transplant like a surgeon would do, and put a lot of that back in over here, like you'd move a window or a door, and then we get ourselves closed in here. The thing is, but if we're pulling this out, now we've got that wall all open and we've made enough room for ourselves to put a window in there that makes sense to have over a kitchen sink. And to the left and to the right adjacent, if we need to make adjustments, that's our construction area staying here and getting our window scenario right. Now these over here are higher up. I think if we get to the elevation, the exterior elevation, they don't come down. That's the problem with windows. Here they are here. I beg your pardon. These are a bit lower, so you're going to want to, I don't know if they're mulled or double hung like that. So we've got some options. I'd like to be able, I certainly don't want to just take windows out and throw them away, but I think we're going to play little musical chairs with windows to some degree. I think it's a good time to look at whether the ones we're taking out, if it makes sense to put newer ones in, but I think this house is new enough to probably not need to. Now in that other area here, they're higher up and we could do anything we want, like cupboards underneath it, meaning those are these here. So that's one of the pros about the kitchen here. We probably haven't got to do, now they're too high to look right out of when you're at the sink, but as a first phase, if we start looking at the cost in doing all of this as being a bit high, we would have the daylight coming in over the kitchen counters and all of that, but you wouldn't have a sight line, and perhaps it's just the one central window that you replace with a bit lower so you can put it right over the sink and look out. But again, we're going to look at this over here because if we're going to transplant that chimney, you know, there are those options. So it's one of these here that I'm going to try and sell the idea. And then, what was another component? The dining room then, in the case that we take this as a kitchen, well, now you can have the dining room table in this area here. And you might even, if that's the case, if it was a real deal breaker to move this chimney, you could have a hearth, fireplace in the dining room situation. But I'd want them to look right at that because there are considerations there, because the chairs right here, pulling them out onto what would constitute the hearth and whatnot. But you could have a shorter table that could get longer and longer and longer, and they can make themselves a nice investment in a table there. And that's just adjacent to what used to be the dining nook here, and then you could go right outside to the patio. And so this could be more of a common area, and you have the ability to put like some hanging plants and have more of a carpet there and a place for shoes and some light. Secondary traffic, like summertime at home already, traffic is a lot here. Right now you come in, you crash right into that table. So having a little more infrastructure to come and go from this home in this area, table and dining here, kitchen there, could be really good. Alternatively, kitchen here, which is the most extravagant use of the space. It's the most dramatic kitchen we can have. The kind of finished angles and looks to this kitchen with a nice big island in the middle of it, down both sides of this room here, opposite the living room area, I think is the sexiest option. And then in which case your dining room area could be here. But again, same thing. You can have a relatively short table and some other, china cabinet, what have you. The other thing I would say is if it seems like too much space to put the dining room in here, we could do a pantry right down this wall next to the stairs. And rather than open railing where you see out as you go up to the second floor, it could be walled to wherever made sense, and take this window out or scooch it over or go to the division between it and the next and go down both sides of it. But this could be your pantry, and therefore you come in and you just have a nice entryway built in this area here and some other things in this room that may or may not make some sense. And then you keep going and do a left after the stairs to put all your long-term stuff in the pantry, and then you keep on going to the kitchen to disseminate the other stuff that's got to go into the refrigerator, etc. And so those are our kind of two major ways to slice handling a lot of their at-home problems that they're having. And I'd never want to undermine the value of a place. I think that a bigger, better kitchen and setting this up for more than a small family, now that theirs has been growing, is making this house more user-friendly and more valuable. Certainly this kitchen is just a white sort of, nothing remarkable in there. We'll get, it's perfectly fine. Nothing bad about how it looks. It's just very understated and modest. And I would like to see them, go in a direction of letting me flex a little bit where we get a lot of return on investment for how gorgeous it is, but it didn't cost us directly outright going to the city center kitchen designer and going to the city center bathroom designer or going to the city center for all of our materials on this, and very formally having an architect draw and then an engineer work that out, and then a GC, and then he gets his tile person and he gets his plumber and he gets his electrician. Next thing you know, the cost and the overall timeline of this on when you're waiting around for all that stuff and the upheaval here can get to be extreme. And when we're talking my operation, I would get started on this and move right through the whole thing and let Tim work for himself on this. And he's got a good sized work benches and table saw and some woodworking in the basement that'll help us out on some of the finished stuff. He's obviously skilled with this built-in that he did for himself, and I think in the end they can save themselves 20 to 30% on the total cost of this project, sticking to a design build like me and their friends. And I really would love to do something here for them that solved all their problems. This is the type of thing that I would like to do more of as TMFX Design Build. This is the whole idea, is to work with me now, talk to me about your issues, which we did. Let me take a couple stabs at those, okay? And then proceed to finish that design, which I've started. And then let me go ahead and GC the thing, and I'll do the electricity and the plumbing, and I'll get my tile guy that I know personally in there to do all your flooring, or flooring and tile guy that'll do all that work for me, and everything's going to go as tightly packed and immediately following, consecutively in the right order as possible. No reworking because of two different subs being in one other's way, what have you. So I'm going to start here and get this laid out. I don't have the ability to see through this paper without putting it on the window, and I don't want to take the blueprints apart. So one of the first things that I did was just set this up to align to the outside of the house here and there, and drag that line over here where I've got enough room to write notes on the paper, and then connected it. And then I came up here and lined that up, this line up with the outside of the wall there. And then we come over here, and this is the bump out actually. So I came down to there and lined that up. So now I got to take a bit out of this, and then really quickly I got the major interior walls, and they relate to the beams, which is real helpful. These kind of things here, like we looked at in the foundation plan, boom, boom, boom. Those are the beams and the piers foundations below. One last thing I'll mention is all this plumbing in the basement in this area for the kitchen sink that comes over and this whole bathroom that goes over, and I think the major septic, maybe not on here, but here's the second floor bathrooms are all in that area as well. All of the plumbing is kind of concentrated here, which is a best practice. So going over here, going over there is a bit of a stretch, but certainly not impossible to do. Maybe I guess the septic out and stuff isn't noted on here. So we're maybe departing a little bit, but if it was completely, the kitchen was based over that area, completely based on the fact that that would keep all the plumbing together, I can tell you that just being 20 years old or 25, whoa, we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. Yeah, 25 years old or so. Less than that, but obviously. There are some problems with that plumbing. I can't believe that anybody inspected that plumbing. That plumbing would not pass code now. And of course, they've had all kinds of problems with that plumbing. Burping and gurgling and plugs and stuff. So I don't think we ever were going to keep the kitchen here. And so in moving the kitchen and addressing that plumbing, I'll be cutting out all the problem areas and getting all of that 100%. So we've got some real sweet, fast-moving, problem-free plumbing happening in this house, which is going to just collaterally improve the upstairs bathroom plumbing for them and for the kids' bathrooms and stuff too. So I think all things considered here, we're going to have a lot of success in the big ticket items here. I don't think we're stuck on not being able to do anything about any of the things that they were talking about. But I'm going to go ahead and get that floor plan knocked out, and then copied and putter with kitchen dining back and forth here without really putting a lot of other details on this. And we got to show, and see whether or not there's room enough. Once I can get a scale going, I got to figure out the scale of this blueprint, and see if there's room enough and how far we got to spread walls to get that pantry to be two-sided, et cetera, because there's some things like that you want to be telling people, oh yeah, we could have this and we could have that, and you get down to it and there just isn't the room enough to have a door of appropriate size with the proper wall return, and the next thing you know, you've squeezed the rest of the space too far to put a full depth entryway cupboard into it, and then start at a logical point and put a door opening, and next thing you know, the door opening can't even go into the garage anymore. Things like that. We got to watch our stack ups to scale, and we got to not be telling people we can do stuff that in the middle of the project we come to find out we can't do. And that's just a product of, I'm going to probably have a finished I got to have something to give the town to pull the permit, but we're going to have a plan kind of on this graph paper at the very least, if not in CAD, which I won't bother to do here because it's just more farting around than it's really worth. I'm going to spend a few hours here today to get to the point where I've got some sketches that I told them I'd bring over, and we'll look at whether they like any of these ideas, whether one suits them more than the other. I'll look at the physical I'll look once again inside and out and look sniffing around basically for anything that's like, whoa, pitfall. This here is going to require this much more. And as a result, you know, it really sells the other option or really makes it a bigger difference in cost back and forth. And we got to give them that information and let them choose. But at the end of this meeting, I'd like to think that they're going to have a major direction that they want me to look, that we all feel is the best. And at that point, I will we'll open an invoice, and it'll be paid time moving forward through the design process. And then as soon as possible within that, and I can estimate the construction. And we know that our timeline is in this summer because they teach, and he'll be off all summer, so he can help. So we've got some time here to get the design finalized, to get it in front of the town, get our permit pulled. But I don't want to lose anything because I got a baby on the way here myself. And we've got to do the musical project in front of this thing, but I got to be at this stage with this so that when we're done with the musical project, we can pick up and logically move forward with it. Either this or, you know, in the event that they don't choose to do anything here, which is still their option, that somebody like myself, we got to sell ourselves another project so that after the musical, we've got something else to do. So that's the sort of chronological order here. If you're just popping into this project and haven't seen any of my channel, you can go and check that stuff out. I do a wide variety of stuff, normally dramatic, normally entertainment-based residential construction, because that's my background for TV and film, dramatic and sexy stuff. I sent them look out there. I sent them, and this is part of what I like to do, a photo stream or a Google photo album of interior design inspiration. Here we go. Here. And I asked for feedback on just, this is the type of stuff, you know, you can recognize that's from Tron. So there's film inspired stuff here. There's all kinds of Reddit interior design, like drama, you know, unbelievable spaces, various just vibe kind of photographs. And, you know, I asked them to identify anything that speaks to them, things that they can't stand that people did, things that they like that people did. And this is the type of stuff that I want to be involved in as a final product in this type of design build project. All kinds of, you know, tricky cabinetry, corner drawer, pots and pans organization. And then they went ahead and sent along, and this is all your typical, same kind of room and different kind of typical styling, give you a sense of what the cues imply. And they sent along a lot of what, you know, we're talking for entryway, talking for a little, like, you know, multifunctional area for the kids to doodle and to keep the family calendar. And here's some more examples of entryway stuff, and different kind of organization in the kitchen and coffee bar and pantry type things and stuff. So this is kind of the direction that we're heading in. This is that, if I could get a corner kitchen in there, this is what I see in that corner. And some other light coming from the left. And a nice big, I want to do a butcher top on the counter, I think, at least in some areas for her as a baker's bench. I like the wood look tile, or even some really premium engineered lumber flooring. They don't like the open shelves, and I don't suggest that either. Maybe across the top. Everything gets dusty, but if you put it up, you get that look, and you can light it, and it's more of a showcase. And if you build it so that it could have glass in the future, that'll keep it from getting dusty. But even getting dusty up there, you don't notice that it's dirty till you get up there. And if you seasonally, you know, Christmas time, you got Christmas stuff out. In summertime, you do something different. If you're seasonally changing that upper level in the kitchen, well, then you can clean stuff off as it's always coming down. Now, we don't want to build ourselves more work, but I'm just saying. This is kind of the direction we're headed, this airy, we're not doing everything white. You can quote me on that. But the green thing is really sexy. The blue thing is really sexy. A coffee tone, espresso, kind of a deep tones and stuff like that. Offset with plenty of contrast in a light, practically white color. So anyway, let's get over there to the site probably in this next segment and maybe walk around a little bit, relate that drawing to the actual space, and then we'll move forward. And this is going to be a good one. You guys stay tuned. Well, it's been a few months, but when last we spoke, we were going to rearrange the floor plan for this newer house, a house newer than I normally work on. Just a few decades old, and I had these cool, original blueprints, which was very helpful. And lots of good information there. And one of the first things that we're going to do is, I wish this would sit open. Really should have done something about that first. Maybe the scale will hold it. One of the first things that we're going to, or the biggest things that we're going to do on the first floor is we're going to take the kitchen in here from this sad inside location with no windows, and we're going to move it over into this corner. We're going to get rid of this chimney, and we're going to put a nice big window to the backyard right over the kitchen sink here. You're going to keep the patio doors here, but this divider wall between these like two rooms is going away, and so we'll have a soft transition, I think, from the kitchen to like a dinette entryway to the backyard area, or at least in and out of the backyard during all the, they have a nice in-ground pool and stuff, so I think it'll make a transition from kitchen, dinette to backyard into kitchen, dinette to backyard pretty easy. This will become a dining room, I believe, and this will be a family room. And so, or they're free to do the family room over here again, but it's like, it doesn't take much infrastructure. They're just big open spaces. We got to break down and move out this kitchen, and we've got to, like I say, relocate that chimney. And our plan in that corner calls for a nice big window over this kitchen sink. The original window over here is going to stay, but it needs to be shortened because we got to have a counter go underneath it. And right now this window is too close to the floor. So same width basically, but replace this window. And we are going to play around with what width here. I mean, this shows just a a 48-inch window roughly, or 44 to 48. But that was because we wanted 2 complete cabinet units here, uppers before the corner cabinet, and 1, 2, 3 complete upper cabinets before the refrigerator. But if we were to omit these 2 upper cabinets, well, then we gain 4 feet overall, and we can really get big with this window, and I think that that's worth doing because the kitchen that we're coming from has such much smaller amount of storage that we're gaining a lot of under cabinet storage, and we've got both sides of this big island depending on how we construct it. We've got under a baker's bench here, and we could even expand a bit in this direction because these windows are extremely short. They're like lights up toward the ceiling, or at least in the upper half of the floor. They're narrow and they just let sunlight in. It's a bit of privacy between you and the next house. So we could come down this wall a bit and continue the kitchen cabinets, and we may even be able to stretch this beam that goes across this opening. If we upsize that beam, we could go into the wall and lose this little pony wall here between the 2 spaces. We have flexibility in that way. So what I'm going to start with doing is making absolutely sure of our window order and locking that in, because it'll be 4 to 6 weeks at least before our windows show up. And in the meantime, we've got to get in and gut this all out and get it all ready for the construction to happen. And we've got to make our appropriate rough openings here and here. And we got to know what our windows are going to be and what the spec sheet says the rough opening calls for. So we went to a couple different local suppliers, and we looked at Sunrise and we looked at Marvin. And it's just really hard to shake a stick at Marvin windows right now. The cost was so similar between these 2 sort of units. And we're looking for a double hung mulled group. I had a larger, or like a wider light with 2 narrower windows on either side here as a group of 3 for that large opening. The house is all double hung windows. And then this is the single. Clear pane below, divided above. Clear panes below, divided above. The house has got grids in all the rest of the windows, and so commonly people, you hate to put grids back because they feel their view is interrupted, etc. Well, the fact is that this is over the kitchen sink, and it's going to start at counter height, and it's going to go up to here before you get to the sash. It's almost like this double hung window here. That's not quite high enough for a counter. However, with the increased ceiling height, the division for this window, ultimately that where the sashes line up is over my nearly 6-foot eye line. And if this has a grid in it, who cares? You know what I mean? You get some treetops and stuff like that. It's the sky out the backyard. But the action of things that are playing out down here is through a clear pane. It's a nice compromise to giving people that clear view and getting rid of the grid. But and we could go with a double hung window that has no grid in it. But I would not go to a casement window or a crank out window or a picture window or anything like that here. In a design build business, I'm trying to I won't just do any old thing the way your contractor would when you haven't got a designer on the project. I'm at least going to strongly suggest that you stick to some conventional styles and make your piece with some things that are just what you do. The locations of windows, the types of windows, they kind of have to do with the outside of the house. For example, at my house, just over here is a quick view of the outside here. All these windows line up. They're stacked on top of one another. These windows over here, everything is kind of lined up and stacked. And a lot of people approach lay persons, people who aren't architectural designers. Boy, that's annoying. Just feel like within the room, we should have a window there because the view, over there is nice. And we should have a window there because the view over there is nice. And you can build a house like that, but it looks like an earth ship in Arizona or New Mexico. It isn't a colonial style or a well-constructed, building, or it looks like a high-end, Frank Lloyd Wright or an ultra custom, Grand Designs type, the TV show house. When we're stuck with the conventions of colonial kind of construction, we can't just be putting windows anywhere. It messes things all up. Morty, you're also messing things all up. So we have to play with these kind of rules. Now, I'd like to see, like I say, a wider opening. So we did omit those cabinets. And so, again, we were over there with Sunrise, then we went over to Marvin. And there are other ways in which you can divide the upper light. See, this is a taller sash below, shorter sash above, and then the 6 and the 4, the aspect ratio is wider than it is tall. And we got to look at what the rest of the grids in their windows are. Because, and then we could just divide it into 3 here. And that's, then those panes are taller than they are wide. And then we could go back to, again, evenly 50-50 upper and lower. It's still wider than they are tall. And so we've got some things that we want to, consider here. But we've got some general pricing and some overall rough opening dimensions. So what have I done here? I've zoomed in from 1/4-inch scale here. And I've zoomed in to 1/2-inch scale here. So I'm getting the corner cabinet, the counters, the proposed rough openings, the proposed window opening, and some other stuff on here at a greater scale. So it's easier to see details and easier to make drawing changes. And, it's just overall closer to deciding on what exactly the window openings will be and where they'll go. Because that's our conversation for today. And once that's locked in and if I have to go back to the window people and make small changes or whatever, we have some pricing that'll keep us, close enough for me not to have to circle back with the customer and make sure of anything like that. We'll have some general ideas from this conversation where if we need details hashed out, I will go back to the window guys. One way or another, I'll be the one who locks in the order. And then, the exact sheet will be photographed and put into the spreadsheet for the customer's reference, and it'll be the first line item on our hard cost expenses for this project. We'll commit to the windows. There's been payable or billable time right along, but we haven't bought anything yet. So that'll be the first thing. And then another thing that we're going to do is this beam overhead here, and it goes from here to there too within the house. In fact, I can maybe show you the photographs that I took of the place. We'll do live on live because I'm not sure that I'm going to get to editing this in. I'll go to Google Photo. Hang on. Bear with me here. Albums. We'll give them a little privacy as to their address. But this is the area where this is, like I say, these lights, I guess they're not, I thought they were just this upper portion. So they're a bit bigger than I thought. However, no problem coming through underneath here with kitchen counter if we want to continue. And again, if we want to elongate this beam and go into the wall, we can get rid of that short wall there. But we're talking about putting the kitchen over in this area. And one thing that we'd really like to see is to take this beam and go up coplanar with the ceiling. Flush it out with the ceiling. So basically, rather than stacking the 2x10 joists from the second floor onto the beam, they'd like to see the ends of those joists in hangers on the side of the beam. And that would mean that this would come over, and then actually this is vaulted over here, so it would go up to the peak of this roof section and then back down at an angle. And I don't know if you can see that in another photograph here. Yeah, so, it's vaulted. And I guess we're going to try and get this to turn a smooth corner from this planar ceiling, come over, and then go right up. And then come back down here, which I think is going to make the space feel a little more grand. And this is that wall where he's done a built-in that we're going to remove, and the chimney that's going away, and the 2 windows that are going away for the sake of the nice big window here that's taller, more around this elevation to clear that countertop. And so we've got that to do. But you can see over here this other room, this dinette that has the sliding patio door. I don't know if I took any photographs of that. We're going to do some work at the front of the house. So I guess I don't have any photos of that, but basically we're going to try to replicate the beam lift on the other side of this house as well. So we've got this place here where we want to move it up planar with the ceiling, and then over here we're going to try to move that up. And if you look at my elevations in here, the construction elevations, I don't think that they don't give me any detail. See, the beam isn't shown. It's all conventional. Yeah, there's no cross-section of that beam for this, where the second floor is smaller than the first, basically. This kitchen room is going to be under a first floor roof, and the second floor starts, this whole area here is under a first floor roof, and then the second floor, actually, the wall is sitting right on this beam. So this is going to mean that we've got to move to, because we've got ceiling joists on this beam on this side, and we've got floor joists on this beam on this side. So we will be needing temporary walls in the basement on both sides of the beam, a little over 2 feet away. In that case, I guess it doesn't really matter. But on the first floor, we're going to be a little over 2 feet away on both sides with another temporary wall. And that's so that when we cut everything back to work, we can cut a 48-inch swath out of the drywall in the ceiling, do our business with plenty of room, and then we can literally put, very easily cut sheets of drywall. We can even try to get 12s or even 16s and go right up in there, rip them, and go right up in the ceiling. Depending, because our joists are all going in this direction, so the longer a sheet we can get, the better. We can get one 16-foot sheet and cut it down the middle in half and try to put it up. It would be a project, but we'll have to support those on both sides, and we'll have to support on the upstairs second floor. We'll have to support on this side of the beam because there'll be nothing that's necessary underneath that roof, because it does show me in the elevation that the roof has strong backs, and typical the strong back comes back to that wall. If anything, this is the second story wall. This is the first floor where there's a big opening, and the second floor, the exterior wall is right there. And so, in my mind, that'll be just the same way as this wall is here. The strong back will go right to that, and we'll check that location. But in that way, we don't need to support over here. That wall is going to stay upstairs. We'll have to see just exactly what we're going to do. But there'll be a lot of supplemental construction, temporary walls that we build in the basement, first and second floor, before we go, and that'll be after we open up the drywall and we see what that beam's doing in there, just exactly what's up with it. So the first round will be to move in and quarantine the area with plastic and take all the drywall away on the inside, take the window units out that we're not going to keep, take the chimney away, open up the drywall on the inside of the wall there and frame those rough openings, probably working on the inside, because outside the grade is kind of down and away, so it'll be easier to stay on the floor inside. And then we'll take the drywall off the ceiling and the joists and the ceiling rafters and that beam, and make it easy to put repair sheets in. But in taking that away, we'll be able to see exactly what we're dealing with and make a plan for thereby what to build for supplemental construction to support everything. And then we'll get that built. And then we'll cut everything free. We'll move that, either reuse that beam and move it up, or we'll make it the same thing a bit heavier. If it's 3 2x10s, we'll go to 3 2x12s. If we want to go a little bit longer, reduce this wall, we'll move up. We'll get with a real architect to do the calculations, but I'll have this nice scale drawing, and I'll be able to give them the original blueprints. I'll give them my scale drawing, I'll give them all these materials, and just say, look, we want to move that up, we want to increase the span a little bit. I need to wash my hands before I touch this paper. And in doing all this drawing work, we'll have the ability to communicate with the customer, communicate with the architect, and most importantly, we have to take this to the building department. So I'm just getting this whipped into shape here where there's the most focus. We're going to do some other stuff here. We're going to consolidate some hardwood floor. We're going to take it out of some places, put it in others if we can help it. And we're adding a pantry room here from the garage. We're moving the garage door down so that you can come in, shoes and coats, groceries in the pantry, or you'll have to continue kind of to the far end of the house with what's left of the groceries. It would be the one sort of caveat to this design. But I still think it's well worth it. We've been through it with them, and they have some problems with the current layout that this practically solves every one of them. So I'm real pleased with that. And it certainly makes the house more valuable with a better, more contemporary kitchen in terms of its layout. People look for that outside window or multiple outside windows, the vaulted ceiling. We're going to be able to do a pretty kind of bougie look in there. Kind of excited about that. So anyway, for now, this is what we're working on in terms of drawings. Let's get this information tentatively in here, and then we'll go and have a meeting with the customers. All right, well, we've got the garage workshop kind of set up here on site. I'm just getting the zip wall pulls onto the plastic sheet to keep the bubble, sort of to help them live while we make a mess. And I'll lay these out on the floor using the subfloor kind of seams and stuff just to get some consistency. And we'll also put it down through the room on like the seam lines to help us with that straightness and stuff too. I just need it out of the way, but you never know what having something in a generally organized, place will help accomplish for you. So we'll do all of that, and then we'll put some doors in, and we'll probably do a little floor protection to the garage so that for now, until we pull the floor up to rearrange it, we aren't unnecessarily damaging any of it with, you never know. And Tim's getting all of his wall plates and register covers and window trims and the hearth and all this extra ceiling fan, any little thing, details. And his wife were here the last few days or weeks cleaning that stuff all up, so they're not paying to have anybody else do it. Being wise. Well, we're looking pretty good right away here. And what I did, because we have a perfect 96-inch distance between the subfloor and the ceiling, it's a little less so with the finished floor here, but I went with a 20 by 25 foot roll of plastic. So as it comes out, as you roll it off, I've got a 20-foot width. And if you cut that at your unique height, so I went to 100 inches, to have just a little bit under the foot of this thing and a little bit over the little top plate, then you got a 20-foot length of what you needed. And again, we ended up with another 20-foot length here, and that's the remnant. But it's more effective than 10 feet, where you've got an extra practically 2 feet at the top or the bottom or on both. And all that does is just create a problem with, because what we're going to do now is tape this down and both across the ceiling and across the floor and up the walls. And so that ended up being what we wanted to do, and I'll put a door in that, and then we'll keep moving. Well, I ran out and Tim finished this up on the inside here where it's taped down all the way around, just the way we like it. And so now the seam can be taped to the floor, and we'll do a meaningful job of taping one piece to the other, although we may want a third type of tape at that point. So now I put the zip wall door in, which are individually one-time use. I forget how much these are, but you get 2 sets of super sticky zippers, and you can space them pretty wide. You get these little hooks that you poke in there, and then you roll up the door. And you roll up the door, and it hangs on there. So that's where you end up limited with how you can. I have extra hooks to beat the band. I probably have a dozen of these from buying doors and just keeping them around. So then you'd end up with multiples. I like to keep it within a foot of a pole, because it's just more support to that area. It sticks unbelievably well to the plastic, the glue that they have on this. This is the second version of these. The first version was sticky, but not as sticky. So then the cool thing about these is you get the zipper on when it's zipped, you get it unzipped all the way up, and then they give you the handy dandy tool that does, so now it's stuck to either side and not in the middle, and it does double poke and slice. And then you haven't got any plastic in the way of your zipper either. And you can watch them do this online, where I'm not going to risk doing a nice job of this, but you poke it in and slide on down. And then, like I say, it gives you like a kerf where the plastic sheet isn't in the way of the zipper, and you can cut right out. I like this stuff, really nice to set this system up. And I got us some RAM board, just a homeowner version. We're not going to be real hard on this. We're not going a real long time and having multiple subs in here. It's a little bit thinner. It's a little bit shorter, but we don't need even as much as that is. And the tape itself, and we'll do, like I say, over at least the hardwood, maybe even the tile on our way out to the workshop outside. And this is some infrastructure that is always good to do. I've done it sometimes, and other times I've skipped it. This is a good enough size project, and the finishes and stuff around here, we don't need to unnecessarily damage them. And so it's a best practice to get some of this stuff up on day one and just do a nice job of it. Over there, we'll finish and just cover the window. It's easier than taking an edge at a 90-degree angle to something else. We'll just finish covering that window so nothing sneaks out around there. And then I think we're gonna get started and take out the drywall where the new window for the kitchen is designed to be, and uncover some ceiling and see what kind of real, true-to-life beam composition there is. There's what's written on the drawing, and then there's what's actually in here. So we got to take a look and see. Tim's exposed his fireplace insert, and he's also found the hornet nest that's been going for a couple years and then dead for a couple years since then, thankfully, because we didn't notice it until there was a giant hole in the wall. I am going to cut our new line, which accounts for the width of the beam, and then the rest of 24 inches, and then that was his mark, and we moved over again like half of an inch. The idea being that we move this beam up into the ceiling, and we've got plenty of room to work and do that, and then our 8-foot long or even our 12-foot long sheets of drywall that are 48 inches wide will go right down the middle at 24, and our 24-inch rips will comfortably sit in here against our cut edge, and they won't at all overhang, so our outside corner, or our, excuse me, it's going to be, well, no, it will be an outside corner because we've got the vaulted ceiling over here. Continue to forget that. But our outside corner will be handy to do, and we'll maximize or minimize the amount of sheets, maximize our efficiency. So right now, the cut goes all the way down the inside corner, all the way back on the chalk and across the end, and then we'll just pull those out and see what the framing type is in here, and see if this beam matches what the drawing says it should be. So at this point, I'll stop with just a little bit of drywall fully taken out. Everything else, very minimum disruption if it needs to be refinished for any reason here, just as a best practice, because lo and behold, we have got 3 layers of 18-inch LVL as the drawing specs. It is in here, you know, on this bearing the way that it should be. This will be solid in here underneath in theory, although we're looking at stuff like 16 penny nails or 18, you know, and roofing nails, putting the joist hangers up and stuff, which is pretty questionable. And fundamentally, why leave the last 6 inches here and cut to fit around this, all when that could have gone to the top? It would have minimized this overall depth. And we are considering another layer, thereby doing the same span with a significantly shorter group of LVLs, pulling this up as high as humanly possible. So gain 6 inches in this 18-inch 3 layer, and then possibly another 2 or 3 inches in going to 16-inch in 4 layers, or, you know, there are other options too. So again, we'll hold off right here and we'll make a final decision after I bounce this off the architect before we go to any more tearing things out. We're gonna get the gas insert out. We'll cover this with plastic so we can manage the incredible humidity that we've got right now for some reason. This new window here exists within this opening, and so on a better day that isn't super humid, we'll take it out and we'll reframe for the new window, and if we've got the new window, we'll pop it right in, and if we haven't, we'll cover it with plastic again. But I don't want to do that again when it's like the jungle outside. And the outside, this whole false chimney situation. That the rest of that will be taken apart from working outside. We'll get the siding off it, got vinyl on it, and take that all down. And the roof will get cut back to the original roof's situation there and flushed out. And that will be where we are until I can get some answers back as far as our options here. But we've got other things that can be done, and we've got flooring that needs to be harvested. So that may be the reason why we pivot and right into this room here and maybe start harvesting hardwood and collect, and that all takes, planning where will it be stacked and how will it be stored and any number of other things. So this is how, you can have all kinds of planning, but I try to shy away from a perfect beginning to end plan because things change. So this entire box thing with all this extra trim work and everything and 2 pieces of gutter all to get this gas insert fireplace to work and look right is all going away. Again, the edge of the roof is going back to being flush, 1 new gutter, all 1 piece. But right now, whatever's cantilevered out of the floor system, which I'll go down and look at, but I expect that this is cantilevered out as sister joist or even deliberately longer. Although I think the fireplace came after the house because I don't think it's in the original blueprint. So I'll see that it's sistered or what have you, but that would mean that this outside wall is structural enough for me to open up the inner true outside wall of the house and get the framed opening and header in for a nice big window, and then take this whole thing away and use this thing to hold up my roof over my new window header while I'm building, rather than taking this away on the outside of the house and then having a problem with putting in a new window header underneath 5 or 6 roof joists or rafters, and having it sag on me right there. So that's chalking in here. It looks like he's got to get the thimble. All that hardware for that thimble is outside. There's a bunch of screws, so yeah, you could take that off, and then so to get this
drywall to here then?
Yes, yeah. And our header looks like it's only for, it's like they build a opening for a window for the fireplace and it gets a header, but this is also a header.
Well, the ceiling joists continue to go and they just have it blocked in between them up here.
Okay. Yeah, so that'll do. This outside wall will hold us up while I make a new header for our full-size window width opening. And then we'll take this thing and take this whole thing down. And I'll get that thing out of here too. Let's go down in the basement. I'm going to see if the floor joists are sistered out underneath to hold that up, which is the last piece of what I need there to be for structural support. It's over here, so I don't see any sister joists, and so I'll probably bring the ladder. I was looking for a double layer to go reaching out beyond the rim, and so I guess it could just be a separate floor system stuck out there. However, I don't know why there were all those layers of 2x4 flat across the top. I'm not sure of what I'm looking at yet. But what I'll probably do is bring a ladder down, go out and pull some of that insulation out and see what I see back in there. But I'm wondering now if I can get away with that. There's no weight on that roof right now, and there's the plywood decking and stuff going across it that a lot of that will hold a few rafters up for you. And so you can systematically take stuff away, and if it starts pinching your Sawzall blade, you know that that little bit of kerf has come down and there's weight that you're, not supporting anymore, and you can just stop. So it's not like it's gonna collapse entirely. So we could open this across here and take a couple things out, like be cutting in the middle of this, and if it starts pinching my blade, I can be sure that I'm gonna have to go in the wall. And well, it's tough, see, because normally I'd put a lifting shore and a temporary beam across and lifting shore here, or even just a temporary wall like we plan to build. But it's an angled ceiling, so then we'd have to attach to the rafter layout. So let's take it as it comes here. First, we'll get the drywall out of our way and see what we see. Okay, so our plans call for one nice big window here with the sink centered on that. And the two windows that are here and here are going to be gone. And so the drywall opening is the rough opening for the new window. And we went to the seam between the wall and the ceiling to give me room to put the header in there. And now we've got some questions about, how much more drywall to take. Well, these wall outlets were done or were wired, and the electrician chose to go up and over and back down right here with that circuitry. Now, if it was wide enough here, I would just leave that. I'd clip it, and if we wanted that in the future, we could use it. The problem is that where it goes through the top plate here is in the way of this header, and the header's going to continue over to this area here, and I don't really want to dig up and around and reroute that all over again. That's not going to be worth it. So I'll probably trace this back over here to this box, disconnect it, and pull that up to there and clip it and throw it out. And then over here into this box, we'll take it up out of our way and clip it. Now, again, we're taking the window away. And then do you necessarily want to put the same piece up in drywall and try to blend that out on the wall? Probably not. Ideally, we'll end up probably trimming across there and putting a new sheet here to fill in from a full 48 here. It'll be a custom rip here coming through. I don't know that it's worth trying to refinish this inside corners. Those take quite a bit of effort. They're halfway decent. They're actually quite good. And so with that in mind, we won't necessarily redo all of that too. So, if we're not digging any further into the drywall, we're not making it super easy to change anything here. Now, the question about what to do with the ceilings remain. If we put more lights in here and direct them all around and wire them all in, that's going to have us drilling and cutting into this ceiling all over the place. And then you've got this sort of, and it's not the best drywall, although it's not terrible. There's some marks. And we've been talking maybe wood, maybe shiplap. That, I think, is a great idea because we can do whatever we want with lights with reckless abandon, and then we can put our shiplap across and we can leave our drywall just perforated. If that's what we're going to do, then you could work right here to reroute this wire over and keep that circuitry for whatever reason if you wanted to do that. The alternative would be to drill through all these joists in the basement and plumb across if you felt it was necessary to come through here with circuitry. Of course, you could just take this circuitry to one breaker and take this circuitry to another breaker. And in fact, oftentimes you need actually by code to have two different circuits over the counter in a kitchen. And so maybe we don't have to cut that flush right now. Maybe we'll leave it long until, a little bit later. I am putting the header right there, so I guess that's going to force the issue. The lumber's here today, so we're just not using that circuitry. I just can't see an easier way of dealing with that other than, I could drill a big enough hole to put my hand in there and try to send this up and get it back again and pull it back through over here. It's an awful lot of monkeying around to preserve a simple 14 gauge run of, Romex. So I think in the end, and I can't see, that would be a good question. Maybe I can see it up there. I'm going to go around in here and turn my light on and see if I can see it going across the plate from this side, which it looks like I might be able to. And in that case, if I can redirect it, I'll keep it. And so we're working through this issue live. Meanwhile, Tim's outside taking the siding off of this thing, and we're just going to keep all this in mind as we move forward so we don't just slice something off, wish we had it later. Just think briefly before we act. So I took that drywall back and clipped that electrical down. Now we've got some fasteners coming through from what could only be described as somebody's best attempt to apply this sheathing. Because, it is siding. It's vinyl siding roofing nails that are coming through. Now you can see I laid out my 74-inch wide rough opening for this window. Just happened to start here. However, that's just a single jack with a king behind it. And I want a double jack or need a double jack underneath this header. So rather than move that all over just to meet our exact dimensions in our drawing, I think that we are going to end up just adding a jack, which is what I show here at this length, and then thereby 74 whoa, I do have to be careful of that because I pushed to that first jack. So I'm not going to have any jack on that leftmost J. It'll be jack, and that king will be a jack, and then the actual king will be to the right of that. So then this is what will get you in trouble. I pushed my tape to that jack, put 74 there, and then put jack, jack, king, and then added a jack in. So we'd end up with 1.5 inches. We'd end up with 72.5 RO, which wouldn't work. So you want to be careful. But the other problem that we're going to have is the nails sticking through, so I'll cut those down, and I'll change these markings. But then the nice thing about this place is that it has a true 96-inch framed wall, which means every stick is 92 5/8 or a pre-cut stud length for an 8-foot wall. So you can actually buy those at the store, pre-cuts. They're normally blue on one end unless you go to Home Depot or Lowe's. But then an unmolested, uncut stick fits practically exactly in, and I haven't got to really do anything with it. So I'll move the markings over just for posterity. I'll put a full king to the right of that K, jack, jack. I'll add a jack there, and then I can snap a line between the face of the jack and the face of the jack here, and put a mark on these sticks that are on layout otherwise and functional otherwise. And actually, I don't want to just trim them for the header. I can actually measure from that down then the rough opening height and put those marks on here and snap that line and add 1.5 inches for the sill that's going to go through our rough opening. It's actually probably going to be right about here-ish. And that will be where I cut these. And then the rest of them is going to come off. But then the header can come through, and I can slap a sill on those and put a couple more cripples in here. And once this whole thing is down, we can put a little bit of OSB back on the front of that. And then this will be ready for a window installation. Whoop-de-doo. But yeah, there's some stumbling blocks that I even almost got messed up. So I got to quick and take care of those changes before I forget. Well, I put the header together, two 8-foot 2x10s and one of these 2x4-foot square project panels. 15/16 or practically half of an inch plywood will create a slightly shy of 3.5-inch wide header, and it's 80 inches, which gives me 3 inches on either end of 74 for the 2-layer jack that we're using here. And that's on account of how great of a span, and at a certain point between, I think maybe after 48 inches or something, there's this point there where engineering wise you need the 2 jacks, but anything that I call extraordinarily wide, this is getting to a point here, another foot or so, and after that I use 2 jacks. No harm, a couple extra sticks, whatever. I didn't have any framing nails for the pass load, so I screwed and built. That was something else. I built this on the bench, which is on the garbage can, but I put these 3 layers together and then I set them into the wall. Now I will anchor the bottom, but I'm going to wait for the pass load, or I might not, who knows, but I'll leave the top loose and hopefully be able to get the header in and then slam this against the other end of it and then put everything together there, and I haven't got to weasel all around. And then the last thing, it can be attached to the top as well as a header attached across the top. Now their headers have a 2x4 plate across the bottom, so we'll do that as well. Since my jacks are made at the same length, we're going to need that to get the header up tight to the top. Got some nails to trim and whatever else. The remnant of these cripples that will end up underneath the sill, which will be here and then a inch and a half down is where I cut these, won't work to make any more cripples below, and it's pretty old. So we don't have any more lumber here. I have been holding off because we're getting kind of jammed up with space, and if I brought it into the job site area, it's even tighter in here where we're trying to work. So I might go just get enough to finish this here. So I'll do a count, get another couple of sticks to finish the cripples. I got a couple sill jacks, and then probably pick up and demolish. In fact, I might not even finish building this until we've taken a lot of this down, and just try to get to a point today where we can cover it back up with at least plastic to manage the climate inside of the house before I leave for today. And that ought to be enough because we're coming up on 3. We ought to be able to do that. And that's the goal. Let's see where we can get done. All right. Quite a productive short week. Had a lot of help here from homeowners, Tim and his wife. I got the window kind of framed into this location. We found out it needed to move over 1.5 inches due to the existing king and jack from the window, or excuse me, from the opening that's here for this original fireplace, like bump out blister situation. And working with that just moved us off 1.5 inches and no problem, especially because we haven't locked in our cabinets or anything else like that yet. A project like this, at a bigger operation, they end up doing so. You end up having that all happening at the same time, and little changes like that. Then the center of your proposed sink base, the center of your sink isn't on the center line of the window anymore. And in this case, 1.5 inches wouldn't have been a big deal, but little things like that could be larger, could be more significant, and could end up being altogether in the end kind of a bummer if there's quite a few of those little problems. So I'm real happy with the way that this is moving. We got the drywall taken up to 48 inches. We can reroute our electrical at that point and get that cleaned out of here. And we're going to continue to take this little construction down. It's original to the house. I found it on the blueprints, so the joists are long enough to get out there. They just cantilever off the foundation. So it's perfectly structural. Got all of this up in here and, left our ends loose until the header was in place, buttoned it all up again. And then if we've got a good lower humidity day, lower, temperature day, we'll finish taking this down. We'll cover this all up. We'll put maybe some of that OSB right back on the outside of this here, patch that all together, and then maybe get Tim started and re-side at least up to the bottom of these windows, and then we can go ahead and take them out, frame those shut, cover those up, and keep re-siding. And so he may have to come over here a little bit more with the siding removal and stuff. So we'll just work outside as it makes sense with the weather. Inside, it's been basically AC in here, which is cool. And I'm just excited to see this new sight line through this window here. That's, again, kind of higher because we want to have room for backsplash and outlets and window trim and windowsill and have nothing, altogether too cramped. So I think this in the end is going to be kind of a really nice situation centered on the sink, and it's going to be kind of signature look here. And then we've got another little side light happening over there. But yeah, I'm going to call it quits for today and probably call it quits on this episode number 1. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you.